We are ranking the 17 largest cattle herds on Earth, a countdown where big means entire landscapes swallowed by livestock, and some properties are so vast they make European countries look quaint. From family-run ranches in Montana to territories managed with helicopters, and even herds so sprawling they need their own time zones. This list exposes the true giants of global beef production. We will uncover operations shaped by indigenous traditions, endurance in brutal deserts, and mind-bending corporate scale, culminating in an industrial megafarm unlike anything you have imagined. Let us start our journey at the baseline, number 17. Muddy Creek Ranch in Montana stretches across just over 2,700 acres, a number that sounds enormous to most people, yet it is the smallest property on this list. Here, the definition of big means a ranch where the horizon feels close, and every pasture is a patchwork of rolling grass and weathered fencing. Muddy Creek is a family operation passed down through generations, where the owners know every cow by sight and every field by heart. Their focus is not on sheer numbers, but on breeding quality, selecting genetics that produce strong calves and tender beef year after year. Calving season brings neighbors together, and decisions about the herd are made around the kitchen table, not in a boardroom. This is the kind of ranch most people imagine when they picture the American West, a place where tradition, hard work, and pride in the product still matter most. But compared to what is coming next, Muddy Creek is just a speck on the map. Home Valley Station stands as a world apart from the family-run ranches of the American West. Here in the heart of Western Australia, in the Kimberley, the scale is almost impossible to grasp. An expanse of roughly 3.5 million acres stretches from the banks of the Pentecost River to the sunburned Cockburn Ranges. This is not just cattle country, it is indigenous country, owned and managed by local traditional owners through the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation. Home Valley is a living example of cultural stewardship on a grand scale. About 10,000 head of cattle roam the property, moving across ancient floodplains, guided by helicopters instead of horses. But cattle are only part of the story. Home Valley has become a destination for travelers seeking the wild beauty of the Kimberley, offering high-end lodges where guests wake to sunrise over red cliffs and fall asleep to the sounds of the outback. Tourism. Here is not a side business. It is woven into the property's identity, providing jobs and a platform for sharing indigenous heritage with visitors from around the world. On this land, economic opportunity and cultural survival go hand in hand, proving that the world's largest herds can be managed with both ambition and respect for country. Innamincka Station sprawls across the Strzelecki Desert, covering a reported 1.5 million hectares, an expanse where the land offers little but saltbush and silence. In this part of South Australia, annual rainfall can dip below 200 millimeters, and the horizon is a wavering line of red sand and gray-green shrubs. Cattle here do not graze on lush grass, but survive on the tough, salty leaves of native saltbush, a plant built to withstand drought and wind. The herd's resilience is matched only by the people who manage them. During mustering season, the station surges to life. Dozens of workers and contractors descend for a few intense weeks, rounding up cattle scattered across country where tracks vanish into sand. Temporary camps spring up, kitchens run day and night, and the local population swells before evaporating almost as quickly. This microeconomy pulses with activity, then leaves the desert empty once more. Every year, Innamincka proves that cattle production is possible on the edge of aridity if you can read the land and move fast when the time is right. Wave Hill Station covers nearly 1.2 million hectares of the Northern Territory. but its impact stretches far beyond the boundaries of cattle country. In August 1966, Vincent Lingiari and more than 200 Gurindji stockmen, houseworkers, and families walked off the job here, launching what became known as the Wave Hill Walk-Off. Their protest against poor wages and harsh working conditions grew into a national movement for Indigenous land rights, echoing across Australia for nearly a decade. The government's eventual handback of part of the station in 1975, with Prime Minister Gough Whitlam pouring sand into Lingiari's hands, remains one of the most powerful moments in Australian history. Today, Wave Hill is still a working cattle station, but it stands as a symbol of resilience. The land is now managed with a blend of tradition and modern science. The station's Brahman herd, chosen for their ability to thrive in the relentless heat and sparse pastures, is the backbone of operations. These cattle, with their distinctive humps and heat-hardy genetics, are bred for survival in a place where summer temperatures can soar above 40 degrees Celsius. Wave Hill's story is not just about scale. It is about the people and animals who have shaped and been shaped by this vast, unforgiving land. Marion Downs covers a staggering 1.24 million hectares in Queensland. But what sets it apart isn't just raw size. It's the way the land itself flips the script on survival. For most of the year, this country is dry, dusty, and seemingly barren. When distant cyclones dump rain into the upper reaches of the Georgina River, the floodwaters travel hundreds of kilometers, creeping across the flat landscape in slow motion. Within weeks, what was once desert transforms into a green ocean of clover and wild grasses. This temporary Eden lasts just long enough for station managers to move in thousands of cattle, taking advantage of a window where weight gain happens at record speed. Timing is everything. Herds are shifted onto the floodplain as soon as the water recedes, and every day counts before the land dries out again. Marion Downs isn't just a cattle operation. It's a high-stakes wager on the unpredictable cycles of outback hydrology, where fortunes are made or lost by reading the sky and the river's rise. In this world, success depends as much on patience and timing as it does on fences and feed, setting the stage for even greater logistical challenges on the horizon. Davenport Downs stands alone on the sweeping plains of western Queensland, its boundaries stretching across 1.5 million hectares, making it the largest cattle station in the state. Here, the distances are so vast that the driveway from the front gate to the homestead runs 200 kilometers, longer than some countries are wide. This is not a road in the usual sense. It is a graded track that can take a full day to traverse, battered by dust storms and the relentless sun. The nearest neighbor is not a farmhouse on the horizon, but a voice crackling over high-frequency radio, sometimes the only link to the outside world. Freight trucks hauling supplies rumble in just a handful of times each year, their journeys planned with military precision to avoid getting stranded by sudden rains or washed-out crossings. Every repair, from a burst water pipe to a broken-down grader, becomes a mission in logistics, with spare parts and fuel stockpiled months in advance. For the handful of staff who call Davenport home, isolation is not just a fact of life. It shapes everything, from how they communicate to how they celebrate. Birthdays, emergencies, and even the nightly news come in over the airwaves, forging a tight-knit, self-reliant community in a place where the world feels impossibly far away. Brunette Downs sits at the heart of the Barkly Tableland, stretching across roughly 1.2 million hectares of open country. Out here, remoteness does not mean isolation. It means community, built from scratch in the middle of nowhere. The station is famous for more than just its cattle. At the center of the property lies a shimmering lake, a rare sight in the outback where staff gather in the evenings to unwind after long days. The social club is a lifeline, hosting weekly gatherings, games, and the kind of laughter that echoes across the plains. Every year, the station throws the Barkley Race Carnival, a bush event that draws pilots from across Australia who land their planes on makeshift runways just to be part of the celebration. For a few days, Brunette becomes a small town, alive with competition, betting, and stories told around campfires. These traditions are not just for show. They help the station attract and keep skilled workers, turning a remote job into a way of life. In a world where size often means isolation, Brunette Downs proves that even the largest cattle operations can be places of connection, pride, and unforgettable moments. Ownership of the world's largest cattle herds is no longer just the domain of rugged families or legendary ranching dynasties. Jumbah Ranch represents a new model, one where the true owners are often faceless, and the land is managed from boardrooms instead of bunkhouses. This mega ranch did not start as a single tract. It was pieced together parcel by parcel through a web of acquisitions orchestrated by institutional investors. Pension funds, insurance giants, and private equity firms now control millions of acres, their names buried in layers of holding companies and legal trusts. Tracing the ownership of a place like Jumbah means following a paper trail that stretches from rural land offices to the glass towers of global finance. The size is kept deliberately vague, but what is clear is that these investors are not interested in tradition. They want predictable returns, stable assets, and exposure to global food markets. Decisions about grazing, water use, and even which breeds to run are made with spreadsheets, not gut instinct. For the people on the ground, the shift is more than financial. The sense of place, the connection to the land, and the culture of stewardship have all changed. Jumbah Ranch stands as a symbol of a larger trend. The soul of ranching is being rewritten by capital, and the line between agriculture and asset management grows thinner every year. Deseret Ranches sits just east of Orlando, Florida, and its numbers turn every American ranching stereotype on its head. The property covers about 290,000 acres, land that stretches from cypress swamps to pine flatwoods, with herds grazing where alligators and sandhill cranes roam. But the biggest surprise is not the size. It is the owner, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is not a relic of cowboy folklore, but a modern agricultural powerhouse run by a religious institution with a long-term vision that reaches far beyond state lines. Deseret is the largest single-owner cow-calf operation in the USA, producing around 44,000 calves every year. That figure alone dwarfs the annual output of many entire states. The ranch operates like a small city, with its own infrastructure, maintenance crews, and a workforce dedicated to both stewardship and efficiency. Water management is a daily challenge in Florida's climate, so the ranch maintains a network of canals, wells, and reservoirs to keep herds healthy through wet and dry seasons alike. Unlike the corporate aggregators reshaping the industry, Deseret's management philosophy centers on sustainability and self-reliance. Profits are reinvested, land is carefully rotated, and the operation is designed to last for generations. In a world where most mega ranches are owned by faceless investors, Deseret stands out, a religiously guided enterprise that quietly produces tens of thousands of calves each year, shaping the nation's food supply from the swamps of central Florida. Clifton Hills sprawls across 1.65 million hectares of South Australia, an expanse so vast that its boundaries are measured in days, not miles. This is Channel Country, a place where the land itself seems to wait, bone dry for most of the year, for a miracle that starts hundreds of kilometers away. When tropical cyclones hit the far north, rainwater begins a slow, meandering journey south, threading through ancient river channels. Weeks or even months later, the floodwaters finally reach Clifton Hills, spilling across the parched earth and transforming it into a temporary paradise. Grass and wildflowers spring up almost overnight, creating a dense, nutrient-rich pasture that is perfect for fattening cattle. Timing is everything. Station managers track weather patterns and cyclone paths, ready to move herds onto the fresh pasture the moment the channels fill. For a brief window, the station's organic beef cattle put on weight at rates that would be impossible anywhere else in the outback. Most of this beef is destined for export, shipped out while the land is still green, before the water vanishes and the desert returns. Clifton Hills is proof that on the world's largest stations, nature is the ultimate engineer, and a single flood can feed a global market. Alexandria Station covers a staggering 1.6 million hectares in the Northern Territory, an expanse so vast that the cattle here outnumber the human population of many Australian towns. Home to roughly 80,000 head of cattle, Alexandria operates less like an isolated ranch and more like a self-contained city. At its heart is a staff village built to support the workers who keep this operation running through the extremes of the outback. The village has its own power grid, a school for the children of station families, and a workshop where mechanics repair everything from tractors to helicopters. Water is pumped from underground bores and distributed through a network of pipes that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. Life here runs on a schedule shaped by the needs of the herd and the cycles of the land. The population swells during mustering season when extra hands arrive to help gather cattle scattered across the property. Meals are served in a communal mess hall, and the hum of generators is as constant as the calls on the two-way radio. For many workers, Alexandria is both home and workplace, a place where birthdays, weddings, and even emergencies are handled within the boundaries of the station. Managing a herd this size takes more than just skilled stockmen. It requires electricians, teachers, cooks, and pilots, each one playing a part in the daily life of this remote community. Alexandria shows that, in the world of mega stations, the infrastructure supporting the people can be just as impressive as the herds themselves. Consolidated Pastoral Company operates on a scale that would be unthinkable to most ranchers. Their web of cattle stations stretches across 5.5 million hectares in the Northern Territory and Queensland. Territory so vast that managing cattle becomes an exercise in logistics, not just husbandry. The secret to their success is not just the size of each property, but the way they treat the land as a living, shifting network. Herds are moved between stations with the precision of a freight company, following rainfall patterns that can make or break a season. Road trains, massive trucks designed for the outback, haul cattle hundreds of kilometers at a time, while managers track storms and green up from satellite feeds and climate models. Every decision is backed by data, from when to muster a paddock to where to send the next load of cattle. Algorithms factor in pasture growth, water reserves, and market prices, creating a system that can pivot quickly when drought threatens one part of the network. This kind of flexibility lets Consolidated Pastoral dodge the worst of Australia's harsh climate, turning what could be a liability into a competitive edge. The result is a company that runs less like a traditional ranch and more like a logistics firm, setting the stage for a new era of cattle management where efficiency and adaptability are the real currency. Across nearly 6 million hectares of outback, the North Australian Pastoral Company, or NAPCO, has built its empire not just on land, but on science. Instead of relying on tradition alone, NAPCO invested in a breeding program that would change the very nature of its herds. The challenge was to create cattle that could thrive in the relentless heat and drought of the Australian interior, yet still deliver the beef quality demanded by global markets. The answer became the Alexandria composite, a genetically engineered blend of Bos indicus, known for heat resistance, and European breeds prized for meat quality and growth rates. Years of selection trials, data collection, and field testing followed. Every calf was weighed, measured, and tracked for survival, fertility, and weight gain. The best performers shaped the next generation. Over time, the Alexandria composite emerged as a new kind of animal, tough enough to graze sparse pastures under a burning sky, yet productive enough to supply supermarkets and export docks. This was more than adaptation. It was a deliberate, data-driven response to a changing climate and a globalized beef market. On NAPCO stations, the herd is not just surviving the outback, it is engineered to master it. This focus on genetic resilience set a new bar for the industry, paving the way for even more specialized, high-value beef production on a staggering scale. Founded in 1824, the Australian Agricultural Company, AACO, stands as the country's oldest corporation and one of the world's largest landholders. Its footprint covers 6.4 million hectares, a territory so vast it could swallow small European countries whole. For most of its history, AACO supplied the backbone of Australia's beef industry, running herds across the endless savannas of Queensland and the Northern Territory. But in recent decades, the company has shifted its ambition from simply being the biggest to producing some of the most expensive beef on the planet. AACO's strategy is all about vertical integration and specialization. The company owns everything from sprawling cattle stations to custom-built feedlots, high-tech abattoirs, and even its own export logistics. At the heart of this machine is Wagyu, a breed known for marbled meat and luxury price tags. AACO manages the largest Wagyu herd outside of Japan, with tens of thousands of animals bred, raised, and finished under tightly controlled conditions. The company feedlots can accommodate up to 50,000 head at a time, and their premium beef is shipped to high-end restaurants in cities from Shanghai to New York. A single steak can command hundreds of dollars, turning the Australian outback into a profit engine for the global elite. The scale is industrial, but the product is pure luxury. AACO's transformation is less about tradition than about market positioning and economic leverage, using land, science, and logistics to create a supply chain that delivers exclusivity on a massive scale. This is not just ranching, it is a blueprint for turning the world's most basic food into a high-margin export, setting the stage for even more dramatic shifts in global cattle ownership and food security. Tianjin Pengxin is not a household name in the West, but its reach stretches across continents. This Chinese conglomerate has quietly assembled one of the world's largest cattle empires, not by building a single megastation, but by acquiring land and livestock in Australia, South America, and beyond. In 2016, Pengxin stunned the Australian public by purchasing a controlling stake in S. Kidman & Company, a firm with more than 10 million acres under its belt. The deal only went through after Australia's Foreign Investment Review Board forced the divestment of sensitive parcels, reflecting deep national anxiety about foreign control over food-producing land. But Australia is just one piece of Pengxin's portfolio. In South America, the group has snapped up ranches in Uruguay, Brazil, and Argentina, using local subsidiaries and offshore trusts to navigate legal hurdles. According to Land Matrix data, Chinese companies now control millions of acres of prime grazing land outside their own borders, a pattern designed not for prestige, but for food security. The rationale is simple. With a population of over 1.4 billion, China's government and its state-linked businesses are determined to lock in reliable sources of protein, no matter where they are found. Pengxin's investments ensure a steady flow of beef and live cattle back to Chinese ports, routed through a supply chain that spans hemispheres. This is not just about buying land, it is about controlling every link in the chain, from breeding and fattening to export logistics and cold storage. The strategy has sparked heated debates in Australia and South America, where politicians and rural communities question whether their nations are selling off more than just property. They are ceding a measure of sovereignty over their own food supply. Unlike the great Australian stations that operate as single, contiguous entities, Pengxin's holdings are scattered across the globe, stitched together by contracts, corporate structures, and shipping routes. It is a new model of cattle empire, one that blurs the line between private business and national strategy, and it sets the stage for the next chapter, where a single station will dwarf even these multinational networks. Anna Creek Station is a place where the numbers simply do not fit inside the usual definitions of a ranch. At 23,000 square kilometers, about 6 million acres, it stands as the largest single cattle station on Earth. To put that into perspective, Anna Creek covers more ground than the entire nation of Israel. The property is so vast that, from one end to the other, the land bends with the curve of the planet. The boundaries of Anna Creek are not just lines on a map. They are marked by the legendary Dingo Fence, a barrier stretching for thousands of kilometers across the outback, built to keep wild dogs from preying on livestock. This fence is so long it can be seen from space, and it slices directly through the property, a reminder of the constant battle between human ambition and the wildness of the land. Managing cattle here is not a matter of riding out at dawn and rounding up a few strays. The distances are too great, the terrain too unforgiving. Instead, helicopters and fixed-wing planes sweep across the landscape, with pilots acting as airborne stockmen. They spot herds from the air, radioing ground crews to close in on cattle that might not have seen a human for months. The cost of a single mustering flight can run into the thousands of dollars, but there is no other way to cover country where a single paddock can be bigger than some European cities. Anna Creek does not just set the bar for scale, it redefines what is possible in cattle ranching. Here, the horizon is never close, and the logistics of moving cattle, maintaining fences, and supplying water become feats of engineering and endurance. This is ranching at its absolute limit, a world where the land itself feels endless and the sky is always part of the job. On the northeastern edge of China, in the province of Heilongjiang, an agricultural zone sprawls across the landscape with a footprint that defies imagination. Here, the Mudanjiang city mega-farm represents not a ranch, but an entire system of industrial agriculture, an operation so vast that its claimed reach approaches 22 million acres. Instead of cowboys on horseback, the daily rhythm is set by conveyor belts, automated feeders, and a workforce more at home in a factory than on the open range. Rows of barns stretch for kilometers, each housing thousands of dairy cattle, their movements monitored by sensors and controlled by centralized computer hubs. The hum of machinery replaces the lowing of cattle as robotic milking stations operate around the clock, extracting tens of millions of liters of milk each year with clinical precision. This is not a single contiguous farm, but a network of industrial complexes and support facilities, all coordinated to supply a steady stream of beef and dairy to the tables of millions. The logistics are staggering. Feed is delivered by automated trucks, manure is processed into biogas and fertilizer, and every animal is tagged and tracked from birth to slaughter. At full scale, the combined workforce numbers in the thousands, including veterinarians, engineers, data analysts, and machine operators. The operation runs on a schedule dictated not by weather or seasons, but by efficiency metrics and production quotas. Decisions are made in boardrooms and control centers, where managers monitor real-time data feeds on herd health, output, and resource use. The city of Mudanjiang itself is interwoven with this agricultural engine. Processing plants, cold storage warehouses, and export terminals create a supply chain that stretches from the Russian border to distant ports. The farm's output is measured not in truckloads, but in shipping containers, milk powder, cheese, and beef destined for markets across Asia and beyond. The entire system is backed by state investment and national food security priorities, reflecting China's determination to reduce reliance on imports and feed a population of over 1 billion. Automation is everywhere. Drones survey feedlots, AI systems forecast disease outbreaks, and robots clean barns at a pace no human crew could match. For the people who work here, life is shaped by the rhythms of industrial agriculture. Shifts run day and night, with teams rotating through dormitory-style housing built on the edge of the complexes. There are no seasons of calving or branding, only the relentless tick of production targets and maintenance schedules. In this world, the old image of the cattleman alone on a windswept plain has been replaced by the technician monitoring herd statistics on a tablet, or the engineer troubleshooting a feed system from a control room. The scale and precision are unmatched, but so is the distance from any sense of tradition or personal connection to the land or the animals themselves. The Mudanjiang City Megafarm stands as the endpoint of a global trend. Where once the world's largest herds were tended by families or communities, today the largest cattle operations function more like cities than ranches. The cowboy era, marked by independence, risk, and a deep bond with the land, has been overtaken by a new model defined by automation, surveillance, and the demands of mass production. Food security is now engineered at a municipal scale, and the supply of protein is managed with the same logic that governs factories. For better or worse, the age of the industrial cattle city has arrived, and with it the story of the world's largest herds enters a new and unsettling chapter. Across all 17 herds, one pattern is undeniable. The world's cattle supply is now controlled by ever fewer, ever larger entities, corporations, conglomerates, and even foreign governments. The industrial scale that once seemed impossible is now routine, turning livestock into a geopolitical commodity. That concentration means our food security, rural economies, and landscapes hinge on a handful of powerful players. In the age of megaherds, the small rancher is nearly extinct, and what is left is a world shaped by giants.